Did other Africans sell Africans as slaves? Sun Divine Nine says that they have heard that Europeans, Christians, that came to the America were sold slaves in Africa by Africans, and they brought them over. Not that they just went and, in another statement, she said, not that they just went and collared them up and brought them over. Well, actually, it's a bit of both. It's a bit of both. In the beginnings of the transatlantic slave trade, you had a mixture. Predominantly, you had people who would buy slaves when they recognized that they were dealing with kingdoms like the Dahomey or the Zulus. They would buy slaves from them because they knew that they couldn't just outright come and conquer those people. Whereas if they were dealing with, say, the Canary Islands or a smaller tribal group, they would go in and they would just take what they wanted. You see, Eugene the Fourth authorized them to take slaves of those who were pagan, who that they declared pagan wise, and then Chris Nicholas V, um, he pushed it to the limit and told them that it is their duty as Christians to go and take slaves for in perpetuity of the what they call pagans, and specifically the Saracens and the West Africans. So in the beginning of the transatlantic slave trade, you had a mixture of going and making deals because you had rival African tribes fighting other tribes, and they took people as slaves. This is a normal thing of that era, where you would buy and sell slaves. Slavery has been around a much longer than the transatlantic slave trade. They had already been selling slaves to the Arabs for the trans-Sahara slave trade. So this was a normal thing. The distinction here is the mere brutality and dehumanization that the Christian transatlantic slave trade had compared to almost any other form of slavery that has ever existed in the history of man. This was the most brutal and the most dehumanizing. Now, I know somebody on your comment in the video that I posted said we were already here, or blacks were already here. They're not wrong, but they're also excluding the heritage of of African ancestry. Blacks people were already in the Americas. This is true, but slavery also happened at the same time. This idea that only one can be the prevailing thought of black people in America is a continued issue to separate us instead of us learning from it, instead of us realizing that we have dual great histories. We have histories that goes beyond slavery, as far as those blacks who was already in America, those blacks who already were coming from Africa to trade with the Americans, and those African nations that were prevalent before. I'm going to start doing videos about that as well.